I'm 91 years old. I was married to Frank for 61 years before he died, and I'm going to tell you the real reason marriages fail. Not the reason your therapist tells you, not the reason the books say, not communication, not compatibility, not falling out of love. Those are symptoms. I'm going to tell you the disease. The real reason marriages fail is that people think marriage is supposed to make them happy. Sit with that. Let it bother you, because it should bother you. It should make you squirm. Because everything your generation has been told about marriage starts with the assumption that its purpose is your personal fulfillment. Find someone who makes you happy. Find your other half. Find someone who completes you, as if you were walking around broken and another person's job is to fix you. That is the most dangerous idea in modern life, and it is killing marriages by the millions. Frank did not make me happy. I need you to hear that clearly. Frank did not make me happy. I made me happy. Frank made me angry. Frank made me laugh. Frank made me think. Frank made me a mother. Frank made me reconsider things I was certain about. Frank made me soup when I was sick and made me crazy when he tracked mud through the kitchen I'd just mopped. Frank made me a lot of things, but happy was my job, not his. When you hand the responsibility of your happiness to another human being, you have given them an impossible task, and then you will punish them for failing at it. That's what most marriages are. Two people punishing each other for not being the source of happiness that no human being can be for another. Frank and I got married in 1962. I was 29. I was older than most brides then. People talked. I didn't care. I waited because I wasn't looking for someone to make me happy. I was looking for someone I could build with. There's a difference, a big one. Building is work. Building is showing up on days when you don't feel like it. Building is laying bricks when you're tired and your back hurts and the sun is too hot and the other person just laid their row crooked and you have to decide if you're going to tear it down and start over or adjust your next row to compensate for theirs. That's marriage, adjusting your row. I see young people now, and they come home from work, and their spouse did something annoying, and they get on the phone with their friend, and they say, "He doesn't make me happy anymore," as if he ever did, as if any person can be a permanent source of another person's happiness. You want permanent happiness? That's not a marriage problem. That's a you problem. Go talk to a priest or a pharmacist or a mirror. Here's what a therapist won't tell you. They won't tell you this because they can't, because their entire business model depends on you believing that the marriage is the problem that needs fixing. But the marriage isn't the problem. Your expectation of the marriage is the problem. You expected a partner. You got a whole person. A whole person with their own damage and their own history and their own annoying habits and their own silent fears that they will never fully explain to you, no matter how many communication workshops you attend. Frank was not a talker. Lord, that man could go an entire Saturday without saying more than 6 words. It used to infuriate me. I'd read the articles in the women's magazines and they'd say, "Talk to your husband. Tell him how you feel. Have a conversation about your needs." So I'd sit Frank down and say, "We need to talk." And he'd look at me like I'd asked him to disarm a bomb. Shoulders tight, jaw clenched, nodding at nothing, waiting for it to be over. I spent the first 10 years trying to make Frank into a talker. It didn't work. You know what it did? It made him quieter, because the more I pushed, the more he retreated. The more I demanded he open up, the tighter he closed. And I was miserable, and he was miserable, and I thought the marriage was failing because we couldn't communicate. The marriage wasn't failing. My expectation was failing. I wanted Frank to process emotions the way I process emotions, out loud, in words, with eye contact and tears and resolution. That's how I work. That's not how Frank worked. Frank processed through action. When I was upset, he didn't ask me what was wrong. He went outside and fixed the fence I'd mentioned 3 weeks ago. When he was upset, he didn't talk about it. He reorganized the garage. When we fought badly, he didn't apologize with words. He made breakfast the next morning and put my coffee on the table before I woke up. His language was action. My language was words. And for 10 years I punished him for not speaking my language instead of learning to hear his. The day I stopped trying to change Frank was the day my marriage actually began. I was about 39, married 10 years. I woke up one morning and Frank had already left for the fields, and the coffee was on the table, and my boots were by the door because he'd seen rain in the forecast and moved them from the porch so they wouldn't get wet. And I sat at this table drinking that coffee, looking at those boots, and I thought, this man has been talking to me every single day. I just wasn't listening. From that day on, I stopped asking Frank to be something he wasn't. I stopped demanding words and started paying attention to actions. And once I did that, I realized I was married to the most eloquent man I'd ever known. He just spoke a different language. Here's the other hard truth. You are going to be lonely inside your marriage. I don't mean sometimes. I mean regularly, profoundly. There will be stretches where you feel more alone lying next to your spouse than you would feel lying alone. And that is normal. That is not a sign that something is wrong. That is a sign that you are two separate human beings sharing a life. And sometimes those lives run parallel instead of intertwined. And the gap between parallel lines can feel like an ocean. I was lonely in my marriage. Frank was sitting right there in his chair, and I was lonely. Not because he was doing anything wrong, because loneliness is part of the human experience, and marriage does not cure it. Nothing cures it. You learn to sit with it. You learn that lonely doesn't mean unloved. It means you're a separate person, which you are. Marriage doesn't dissolve the boundary between two people. It just makes the boundary worth living next to. People leave marriages because they're lonely. They leave and they find someone new, and for 6 months the loneliness disappears because new love is a drug that numbs everything. And then the drug wears off and the loneliness comes back. Because it was never about the other person. It was always about you. And now you've broken something that was working to chase a cure that doesn't exist. Frank died 9 years ago, lung cancer. 8 months from diagnosis to the end. And in those 8 months, he talked more than he'd talked in the previous 60 years combined. He told me things I'd waited decades to hear. He said he was proud of me. He said he was sorry for the quiet years. He said he loved me in words, out loud, with eye contact and tears. And you know what I said? I said, Frank, I already knew. The coffee told me. The boots told me. The fence told me. The breakfast told me. You've been saying it the whole time. I just had to learn your language. He died on a Monday. I held his hand. His last words to me were not, I love you. His last words were, did you eat today? because that's how Frank said I love you, with action, with concern, with making sure I was fed and warm and taken care of. Until his very last breath, he was taking care of me in the only language he knew. For everyone listening, stop expecting your marriage to make you happy. Start expecting your marriage to make you grow. Growth hurts. Growth is uncomfortable. Growth means looking at yourself honestly and admitting that half the problems in your marriage are yours. Stop trying to change your partner into the version of them that would be more convenient for you. Start learning their language. They are talking. You're just not listening. And stop running from loneliness. Sit in it. It won't kill you. And when you come out the other side of a lonely stretch with the same person beside you, you'll understand something most people never learn. Love isn't about never being lonely.